A decent crowd here. We're just going to do things a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We are going to have written questions only. We're not going to be taking live questions from the floor. However, we do encourage you to write your questions down. There's index cards and pens on every table. Please write them down and turn them into McBone. Give us a wave back there. That's the table you need to turn your questions into. You can hold them up. Miss Carrie Drost will try to get around and get them from you as well. If you have a follow-up question, it's one of the complaints, I guess, that I've gotten a couple times. If you have a follow-up question that is essence of time, hold it up and just wave it, and we'll come right around and get it and let us know that it is a follow-up question, and we'll make sure and get it asked right then, okay? Anybody have any questions on how we're going to do the forum tonight as far as questions go? Good to go. All right, and for the candidates, we're going to do 3 minutes limit for your opening statements, and then we have a 2-minute limit on answering questions. Stan will be our timer. He's going to give you a 15-second warning, and then we're going to shut you down. All right, any questions from the candidate board? Panel. That's a better word. You're not bored yet, right? We're trying to get there. All right. We will go ahead and start on this end. Ed, if you want to open us up with your opening statement. Oh, Scott has a question. Hold everything up. What's happening?
Do the pledge and the prayer.
Oh, we do. My apologies. We need to do the pledge and the prayers. McBone.
Let's bow our hearts before the Lord tonight. Father, we thank you for each of these who have put their name in the hat, so to speak, Lord, to run for commissioner. We pray, Lord, that this forum will be very informative for all, so that, Lord God, we can truly select the best for Weston County. Lord, thank you that you have a plan for this county, and that, God, it would be one that would be a blessing to all of us. Lord, we do humble ourselves in your presence, and before I close, I just ask you for rain in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mick. We appreciate that. All right. Did I cover everything?
You got it.
All right, we will go ahead and start. Ed, my apologies.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you for having me here for tonight's forum. I'm Ed Wagner. I'm running for County Commissioner. I've always told my kids, you get out of the community what you put into it. We moved to Newcastle in 1992, and I immediately became involved with the volunteer fire department here in town. I served there for 16 years. I was a captain, treasurer, assistant chief, and chief during that time. During that time, I also served with the Weston County firefighters. I became involved with city government. I served 4 years as a city councilman and 6 years as your mayor here in town. My wife and I built a house in the county in 2012. I've been honored to serve as the Weston County Commissioner for the past 8 years, with 3 years being as chairman of the board. Been involved with the Wyoming County Commissioners Association and currently representing Weston County on the executive board of the WCCA, working hand in hand with legislators in Cheyenne. One example is getting a bill passed which allowed the consolidation of solid waste districts by a resolution, which saved many taxpayer dollars. 9 years ago, I was appointed to the Weston County Solid Waste Board and have been that chairman for all 9 years. I'm very proud to be involved with the construction of a new landfill that is scheduled to open in the next few months and will serve the county for the next 1 to 200 years. I am pro-life and Second Amendment. It's been an honor to serve the citizens of Weston County in many different roles for the past 32 years, and I would be honored to serve the county for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Wagner. I'm going to go ahead and ask that you guys stand up. Some of the people in the back cannot see you, so if you would stand up when you answer or speak. Thank you, Mike.
I can do that.
And hold the mic right up to your mouth.
Hold the mic, Mike.
Right, there you go.
I'd like to say thanks all for coming with us.
A little closer, Mike. Thank
I'd
you.
like to say thanks to all of you for coming. What a great turnout we got, I think, so. Isn't this a pretty good turnout for Weston County? My name is Mike Harris. I'm married to my beautiful wife Diane, and she's back there somewhere. We have a son here, and we've been ranching down here in Weston County for about going on 31 years now. I've had about 31 years in this county, and I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff come, seen a lot of stuff go. A lot of people come, a lot of people go. We kind of need to start trying to kind of retain some of the good stuff that we have here. I'm a strong Christian conservative. I support the Constitution of our state. I support the Second Amendment. And I'm a strong Christian. I serve on our church council here in town. A bit about my background. I was born up at Ellsworth Air Force Base. My dad, he was a lifer in the Air Force. We've always been around this country. When he was in Japan, my mother died when I was about 3 years old, and my grandmother raised me. I'm kind of old-fashioned because of that. And I believe in a lot of the old values. I'm a very strong Christian. She was a very strong Christian woman with strong morals and really good work ethic. I've owned and operated several successful businesses. My wife calls me Donald Trump of Weston County. I don't have that much money. I'm not a politician, but I do have a lot of good negotiation skills. I've been in business by myself for 31 years. Made all my decisions, have had several successful businesses. Had a TV show that we concluded here a couple years ago, and it was called Dino Hunters. That was quite successful also. My objectives as a commissioner are, of course, I think that our taxes are too high. We need tourism, we need roads. We need to keep our young people in the county. That's one thing that is kind of essential to keep having turnouts like we have now. I think that's really important. I personally am doing something to promote tourism in Weston County. We're working right now on some of the dinosaurs that I sell. I always request that I get to keep the cast, and we're going to try to get some of these casts of some of these dinosaurs in Weston County here. I'm starting to run out of time. Anyway, we found the third most complete T-Rex in the world, and he's going to wind up over here. Thank you.
Mike Harris, Candidate for Commissioner. Don Taylor.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to be your commissioner the last 4 years. When I came to Newcastle, I obviously married to Ruth Taylor, who is obviously the better half of me. But we have 2 businesses here in Newcastle. We are invested in Weston County completely. We employ 31 people. When I came to Newcastle, I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to not just sit on the sidelines and talk about doing things. I've heard a lot of people sit back and say, if I would have been there, I would have done this or I would have done that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a difference. So I ran for commissioner. One of the things I'm proud of is that I am very conservative. I believe in the Second Amendment wholeheartedly, the Constitution of the United States. I am definitely pro-life. I think that Weston County is one of the most generous communities that I've ever seen. In fact, I fell in love with it here. My wife was gonna move and come with me, and I said, no, I want to be here in Weston County, and you couldn't pay me to go back to Pennsylvania. That's where I'm from. I was born at Valley Forge Army Hospital. My goals with being a commissioner are the same now as they were 4 years ago, so to continue moving forward. Keep the transparency. I don't think that just doing what we always did is good enough. I think that we need to continue to make Newcastle, Upton, Osage prosper. If we look at things right now, we are not prepared for a great deal of growth, but that's exactly what we need. We can keep our hometown values, we can keep a small town community, but if we had an influx or a new business come in here tomorrow that employed, say, 10 or 15 people, where would we house them? Our infrastructure needs work, and I think that's going to take some creativity with the budget. It's going to take transparency, and it's going to take us being pro-business in Weston County. So that's why I'm running again. Continue moving forward. Thank you.
Tom Taylor, City Chairman. Henry Essel.
Good evening. I first would like to thank Kerry Gross and the Republicans and the Republican Committee for hosting us this evening. My name is Henry Nessel. My wife and I moved to Weston County in June of 2020 after buying our home in May. We're from the Washington, D.C. area, and when I'm asked why the move, I reply, one word, freedom. I lived in Virginia, and in 1 year, the Virginians lost much of their freedom, especially freedom of the Second Amendment, and I'm definitely a Second Amendment follower. I'm a conservative, and I came from that very liberal area. I am pro-life. In my work, I've been a firefighter paramedic. I'm now retired, and I worked there for 26 years. In my second career, I just can't sit still. I worked with the federal government in the defense industry for 23 years, where while working for the federal government, I was honored by the Defense Intelligence Agency and decorated with their Director's Medal. My education is, I went to high school in Washington, D.C. and Bethesda, Maryland. I attended Montgomery College in Maryland and also Monmouth College in New Jersey. That is now known as Monmouth University when you look at those polls that are out there. For nearly the past year and a half, I've served as the president of the Newcastle Area Chamber of Commerce. I do own a small gun business north of Newcastle, moving my gun store from rural Virginia to Wyoming, again for that one word, freedom. I understand and have worked with shrinking budgets, and I understand how to keep services alive with less. The term used when I was in the federal government was doing more with less. Sequestration, if you remember the word sequestration, I can't say it. Sequestration, yeah. That time when they took all the money away, that devastated my office, and we had to find other ways to get revenue. As a branch chief, I monitored my budgets carefully and was able to implement spending that was beneficial to my unit. 2 years ago, I ran for commissioner due to budget and dispatch. This year, I'm running due to budget and revenue. Weston is looking at a drastic reduction in tax spending, I understand. At the time I worked for the federal government, my agency suffered drastic reductions in funding and potential elimination of programs. I know what it means to do more with less dollars, and my office survived, and we found additional revenue. That is what Weston must do, find other revenue. Tourism is one. Weston must find and develop a draw for tourism in Weston County. And this gentleman's paleontology site is a fantastic way to do that. Last year as chamber president, I asked the city council for, I was asked by the city council to try to bring Springfield Armory here, but I was unable to do so because that needs to be a cooperative effort between all the governments. Lastly, my dad said it best in a sign he posted in his shop, and I promise not to do it. He says, don't start any vast projects with half-assed ideas. My goal is to listen and respond to your needs, and I understand this is a part-time, temporary job, and this is my job interview with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry Nessel. Marty Erdman. Let's try this one.
That works.
Thank you.
As you all know, my name is Marty Urban, and most of you know my background after being a county commissioner for 12 years. So I'd like to spend my 3 minutes being preemptive and to clarify a couple of misconceptions about a lawsuit concerning the secret ballot and text messages so that perhaps we don't have to waste time during the question period. First of all, Weston County Board of County Commissioners did not lose the lawsuit because there was no trial, therefore no evidence, no discovery, no judge's ruling. The only rule the judge was involved in was asking the two parties if they agreed on the terms of the settlement and then signed it. He didn't make any rulings or judgments. The final result of that settlement was a stipulated order. West's Encyclopedia of American Law defines a stipulation as an agreement between attorneys that concerns business before a court and designed to simplify or shorten litigation and save costs. Stipulations are voluntary, however, and courts may not require litigants to stipulate with the other side. A valid stipulation is binding only on the parties who agree to it. Courts are usually bound by valid stipulations and are required to enforce them, and parties may stipulate to any matter concerning the right or obligations of the parties. The litigants cannot, however, stipulate as to the validity of the constitutionality of a statute or as to what the law is, because such issues must be determined by the court, which is exactly why going to trial would have been a great idea. The decision made would have been case law, which the legislature could have been perhaps codified or altered. Or the decision could have been appealed to the Wyoming Supreme Court and a ruling may have been rendered there. So let me end with a couple things to consider. According to demands of the original lawsuit, if the defendants, the Board of County Commissioners, were found at fault, they were to pay the attorney's fees of the plaintiffs, which rumor has it was approximately $15,000. That did not happen. And if an intentional violation of the open meeting law did occur, why was the board not required to pay the $750 fine? I do have both and all documents available for your review at any time, but you also those documents are available from the Weston County Clerk of Court for a minimal fee. It is my hope that using this time to dispel these misconceptions, more time will be devoted to asking questions that will help determine which candidates are the best fit for the future of Weston County. Thank you very much.
Marty Urban, thank you. All right, we're going to start with our first question for the night. It is directed specifically to Don Taylor. If re-elected, what is your vision for accomplishments and goals for your next 4 years to leave the board in better shape than you found it?
My vision for the future is simple. It's not just to survive, but it's to excel, to exceed, to make sure Weston County grows. A growing community does not mean we have to change who we are. We can be a growing community and still have small town values. The accomplishments that I'm proud of as your commissioner is we had no raises while I was in office. We did in the past board. We absolutely did. We don't worry enough about our county employees, and I think we spend too much time worrying about a commission that's part-time. The county employees do most of the work, and I think that's where the raises are deserved. I'm very proud of being a part of bringing prayer back into the commission. This is a Christian community who believe in it. I find it very interesting that we had concerns from certain commissioners that they did not want a lawsuit put against the county, but had no problem when their own constituents put a lawsuit against them. It's very odd. So if we want to talk about facts and moving forward in the future and what I see for it, I see moving forward and leaving the past behind. Service is hard. You're never going to win with everybody. I thank the people that have served on the board for many years, but their time has passed. It's time to look forward, to not be complacent, to not rely on best buddies to get a vote passed. It's time to rely on what's common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Second question is to everyone on the panel. Do you see the present makeup of the board of being a well-balanced board to serve the four corners of the county? What type of changes do you think would make a better balance? Let's go ahead and start with Marty.
Thank you. If the question is it well-balanced of the all four corners of the county, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So at one time, we had districts, and the county was divided into 3 districts, and you could vote for a member in that district. And I believe what happened, Danny Bell could probably tell me better, but it was petitioned for the voters to go to a 5-member. And part of the problem was is that they never could get anybody from certain parts of the county. Now, I don't know if that's not a bad idea to go back to that, because what happens is the most populated picks the most people. And we've been fortunate at sometimes because we've had 2 from Upton at one time. And most of the time we get a couple, I believe there's 1 right now, but sometimes we've had 2. But I have no problem with going back to the idea of having districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Henry?
The well-balanced board is actually something I'm fully in full agreement with, and the idea of districts and representing certain areas is what I came from. Currently, I'm not too sure, I don't understand the balance of the board because I don't know the address of the folks where they live. I know that I live up by Redview, and so I would be working for the entire county, but I live by Redview, and so that area of the county would be covered by me. How would I change it? I still like that idea of districting. Because in districting, you can get your representative that will be for you in your area, and not, as Marty had said, primarily the larger areas of residence, such as the cities and towns.
Thank you, Henry. John Taylor?
Remember to hold the mic up. It's got to be right up there.
Can you repeat that question, Mr. White?
Yes, sir.
It's hard.
Do you see the present makeup of the board of being a well-balanced board to serve the four corners of the county? And what type of changes do you think would make a better balance?
I think the board has a lot of experience on it. Some very little, but learning, some intermediate, and some very experienced. Would I say it's balanced? I'm a term limit person. I believe that experience, just a quick fun fact, the most experienced driver out there is the highest risk to have an accident. You can look that up, it's the absolute fact. And that's because they get so much experience that they think that I've been on that road 20 years, I can handle it, I can do whatever, I've done this for a long time. Actually, the new driver is the one that's the safest because they're scared. They're scared of hitting things, they're scared of pedestrians, they're scared of animals. If you think about it, the more time we get with experience, frankly, the cockier we get. I don't want to become cocky, which I said at Upton last night. I am running for 2 terms because I believe in term limits, and I think that I learned a lot from the last board, frankly, and also from this board in my time, and I've learned how to maneuver around, but I still have a lot to learn, and I still make mistakes. So no, I think what would better the board is term limits. I think a fresh perspective is always important. Even for myself at that point, I think that it's time for a fresh perspective after a certain amount of time. So no, I don't think it's as balanced as I'd like to see it.
Thank you, Don. Mike Harris?
I don't have a lot of experience on this, but I would say I would say also that the board is not as balanced as it should be. I think that there's a lot of wealth in trying to go to a district idea. I think that it will kind of bring all corners of the county together. There are higher populations in some places, but then, you know, the people on the end of the counties, I think that they kind of get left out, and I just think that there should be districts, and that's about all I got to say on that.
Thank you, Mike. Ed Wagner.
Thank you. My perspective on the balance of the board is we have 5 commissioners, and all 5 commissioners have different backgrounds. And I feel a balance comes from all the different backgrounds, what they can bring as business owners, as ranchers, as real estate agents, I mean, wherever they've been. But I would be wholeheartedly go back to the district, so you represent the people in your district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And we're going to go ahead and remain down there. You can go ahead and answer this one for us. What are your thoughts on term limits, and why do you feel the way you feel?
I'm not against term limits. A 3-term would be, I would feel, a good term. My experience has been the first 4 years, you're a deer in the headlight. You learn so much. I thought I knew quite a bit about county government coming out of city government. No. There is no comparison between county government and city government. The first 4 years, I was a learning experience. In the last 3 years, I finally got really comfortable going elbow to elbow with legislators in Cheyenne and calling them out on their BS. So a 2-term limit, you're too short. I mean, you're just starting to get your knowledge and get comfortable, and you're out then. So 3 terms, 12 years, that would be, I'd go for that. That's not bad. But a 2-year term limit, you wasted 4 years of your time learning, no matter how well you researched it or your experiences are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Mike Harris.
I think absolutely, I would say 2 term limits. I think that the first term, I agree with that, but you need to settle up when you learn to have to ride hard, and you learn how to have to ride fast. And you learn, you ask questions, you talk to people, and you get the feel for what you have to do. And after a year, you should start to be experienced enough if you've been doing your job. So I'm in agreement with 2 term limits.
I think I already stated that I believe in term limits at all levels of government. We have one in office now that's been in there, 43 years, and what did that experience give us? And people have different opinions. I'm not trying to be partisan to one or another, but I just look at what I see, and that's what I go with. But 2-term limits is what our president has to face. That's what they deal with. So I don't feel that any of our elected officials should have any more of a term than the top leader of the world, which is our president. So 2-term limits is more than enough, I think.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, Mike. I didn't get a chance to say that. And so go ahead.
I too am a term limit person. In fact, probably my whole career I've worked limits. In the fire service, we changed shifts, we changed stations, we moved around constantly. I mean, I never stayed in one station more than 3 years. In the federal government, there was a requirement where I worked that every 2 years you changed your job. So you moved on. And so I've always had that. So I fully agree with term limits. And the idea of 2 terms, one first year, learn in, and then continue, want to be able to work it for 2 terms would be my benefit. And also the benefit to you, because it keeps things changing.
Thank you, Henry. Marty Irvin.
You're right, I should leave it. You're right, I should leave it on. Yes, thank you. Of course, you know I'm going to say no. And here's why. So you have a 5-member board. Every 2 years, you either re-elect 3 or you re-elect 2. So what would happen when you, the three could not run for election, and you have two brand new ones that just had been there for 2 years? If you don't have the type of experience, and the best part of the whole thing is that you have to have a very experienced clerk, experienced attorney, and that would help in that instance, but there was an occasion when we didn't. And so what you need is to have established a foundation and a basis, allowing those people to learn those things, including, and I will admit, bad habits. Those need to have new, fresh ideas to come in so that you can perhaps change those. But I would say no, because when you get the institutional knowledge that you do, and there is a lot to learn, and I would ask that most probably can't even, we get a list, we're used to get a list from the WCCA of all the acronyms. And I'm telling you, after 8 years, you're still looking at the acronym to see what the definition is. It's just that hard. There's just a lot that goes on, so I'm no. Thank you very much. Leaving the microphone on.
Yes, and please go ahead and stay standing. Oh, look at me, I'm lit. This one is directed for Marty. What did you accomplish in your 12 years as a commissioner that would give us reason to re-elect you?
Fair enough. I happen to have a list. Because I'm a list person. We did a lot. Let me begin with a few. We fixed, repaired, or at least 7 bridges. We built and devised a road plan book and a county road book. Wonderful. Received green light ratings for our proficiency in correctly using county road maintenance and construction funds. There are a lot of things that go into spending that money. When the state suffered a shortfall, we were able to cut the budget by 13%. It was tough, right, Brian Colbar? We established a new roof, a new HVAC system, remodeled the courtroom from a flood, and remodeled the courtroom due to updating the sound systems, the security, and we also remodeled the assessor's office. We stopped the federal overreach of a Forest Service prairie dog management plan that was horrible. But we stopped it by being in a working group that we were up to 2 years working, and we stopped it. We stopped the white-nosed bat. There was a comment made that on the Thunder Basin grassland that there were underground caves that had the white-nosed bat. We gave a lot of pushback on that one and needed some proof, and we stopped it. And we also stopped some BLM roadless plans. And as I explained last night, we stopped an Army Corps of Engineers that wanted to shut down Mallow because they felt that when the shooting range there, thank you, was putting lead into the water. And they wanted to shut the place down for 3 years while they did munitions testing. They even said that there were bombs there, the place. We built a new building at the fairgrounds, and when it was damaged, thank you, we mitigated its areas in construction, and I have more. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Ed, the same question was directed for you. During your 8 years serving as a commissioner, what did you accomplish that you feel justifies re-election?
I worked hand in hand with Marty on about the last third or half a third of what she said. We stopped the prairie dog down on the Thunder Basin National Grasslands. We've put bridges in. We put a new bridge down on the Bruce Road. That we got the courtroom remodeled, the assessor's office remodeled after the flood. Did some repair work around the courthouses last year, or 2 years ago, with the sidewalks was in bad need of repair. Like I said earlier, I worked with the hand-in-hand with the legislator, Cheyenne. It was an easy bill, but that bill saved Weston County several thousands of dollars by not having to go out for an election to consolidate a landfill. I didn't have enough foresight to write a list, but thanks to Marty for having that list going. I'll piggyback on part of hers and add a little bit to it, so thank you.
Thank you, Ed. The next question is basically the same question, but if you are a current commissioner, what do you feel is the one thing that you have done to make a difference? Don, I think you're the only current commissioner that needs to respond to that.
One of the things I had a direct effect on was the Joint Dispatch Board. Again, I think our sheriff can vouch for that. We had an absentee commission for most of that event. And as you guys know, we were going through possibly having 2 dispatches, which in a population is a little over 6,000 is absolutely ridiculous. We had to work with the city. Those roads were bumpy because of bad relationships that had been developed over time. Not only with the city, but with the law enforcement, with Upton, with the fire department. There was a lot of lack of trust. One entity wanted to control it and was there to see to it that every entity had a say in it. And I'm very proud of the fact that we do have a joint dispatch board now and that they are coming together, and we'll see the result of that with state-of-the-art equipment that will serve our community very, very well.
Thank you, Don. Directed to Mike and Henry.
Commissioner Wagner is the present commissioner.
Yes, but he did say all the things that he
Oh,
did
okay,
in his 8
sorry.
years, so I felt like that answered the question appropriately.
Okay, sorry.
Ed, do you feel you need to add anything?
No, I'll just let it go at that.
Okay. Mike and Henry, if you are elected as commissioners, what is your #1 goal as a commissioner? Go ahead, Mike.
I think that probably that the #1 goal should be tourism. We need a lot more income in this county, and I think we can do that with a lot of tourism. I got some pretty good ideas on some dinosaurs and stuff, and we're talking to the Anna Miller. We can do other things. There's a host of things. We can take ideas from all of you. All of you are all part of this county, and you're all part of this community. And I think that there's lots of things that we could be doing. We just need to start to do a lot of brainstorming.
Thank you, Mike. Henry?
The #1 goal, I believe, should be an increase an increase in revenue. Not just cash, but revenue, something that's reoccurring. Tourism would be a fantastic source of revenue to be able to get that draw, to be able to bring people here, especially in season. Drive over to Custer right now, they're full, they're booming, and they only work half a year roughly to make the money they make for an entire year. We have to work all year for it here. Revenue has to be one of our #1 challenges to make sure we have sufficient revenue for our county and taking care of all of us in our county.
Thank you, Henry. Directed at the 3 on the panel that have or are currently commissioners, many say that they've made mistakes, but they have learned from them. Name one mistake you feel you committed as an elected official, and in hindsight, what would you do differently? Ed?
I guess one of the mistakes is not getting involved in depth soon enough with some of our legislators and pushing back and being more vocal with them. Don't not letting the government overreach come all the way to our level. Push harder and get it stopped on their level so it doesn't trickle down to us. I think that'd be the one that would, is sitting back and just kind of like being the new kid on the block and learning, but learn after first recess, don't wait till noon recess. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. John?
I think the biggest mistake that I made is I thought everything was black and white when I went into office. There's 5 sides to a pancake in this position, and I feel like my maturity level when it comes to decision making has jumped leaps and bounds simply because there's never just a black and white answer. An indigenous body in the county, there's so many different choices which I think both commissioners would agree about. And you're never sure what the right answer is, and no matter what you do, somebody's always going to be mad at you. So I think that's my biggest regret. Not getting myself a little bit more prepared for the fact that I'm not always right, but I'm always looking for the right answer. So that's my biggest regret.
Thank you. Would you repeat it, please?
Many say that they've made mistakes, but that they have learned from those mistakes. Name one mistake you feel you committed as an elected official, and in hindsight, what would you do differently?
One of the first big mistakes that I made when I was first commissioner is I made sure, and I still would to this day, not quite the same as a mistake, but I went in with all the research on any given topic, and I brought in a file box, and I had everything laid out. And instead of having a conversation, I just said, this is how this is, and this is how it works. That was a mistake in the fact that I didn't include the other commissioners in the way of education and listening to what they perhaps knew about the subject. I just took this leap, and that always wasn't a good idea. So, thank you.
Thank you, Marty. If or when cuts in spending are required, and this would be addressed to the entire panel, which aspects of the budget should be visited first and which ones should not even be considered? Marty, you'll go ahead and start for us?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So if there's cuts that have to be made, the most equitable way to do it is to ask every department head to make those cuts. If you put a specific item that this one's not going to get cut, and there is one, you're not going to cut wages. It's just not going to happen. You may have to cut employees, which is not something you really want to do. But what you do is you go to your departments and his heads and say, this is what we're going to ask you to do. We need you to find a way, whether it is with your equipment, it's with your employees, whatever. But we'll try to save the employees first, because the county, that's the number one asset that a county has, is those employees. And I think that'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Henry.
Spending cuts are difficult. I've gone through them, and I agree with Marty. You go to your department heads, you go to the supervisor and manager of that section, and you have them work up the plan on how they would cut to the percentages that you have to cut to. And those cuts can be difficult. I've had to cut staff, but I've never had to cut salary. I've had to cut processes. I've had to cut programs. And that is the hardest thing to do in the federal government. The federal government never turns anything off. Well, under sequestration, I got the word that time. We had to, and it really worked. So you must go to your department heads, and they must be the ones to work with you, because they are the frontline managers. They are on the front line of this problem.
Thank you, Henry. Don.
The budget's been kind of touchy this year. It's touchy every year. Let's not kid ourselves about it. But several times we brought up this year, I have brought up that never ever do I want to lay somebody off from the county. But I do believe there is time, and I have suggested, and I'm actually proud that I've suggested it, that we do need to have a hiring freeze between April and July. What I mean by that is nobody gets terminated. But if you're not completely staffed, you don't hire until after the new budget comes in there. And the reason why I said that was because we, in the past, were always borrowing from what I call new money before we paid the old money back. We've had multiple budget adjustment hearings because our accounts are going over. There's things that happen, emergencies that happen, that go over. But we, I think, would help eliminate those type of spendings, because Employees, the cost to pay them cannot be spent on anything but to pay them. So at the end of that, when the new budget comes in, instead of having budget hearings that we're trying to figure out where the money comes from, the money would already be built in the budget. Because you would have saved that money from July. Now, there's times where you might not have anybody that's missing, but in this particular year, we had some people that were not hired. We weren't spending the salary as they were budgeted. If we would have held that money until the new budget came, we could have used it to backfill, if that makes sense. Instead of, let's say we use 3% of the new money that's coming in of the budget that we haven't even approved yet to fill that money, that 3% would stay in that budget and continue on. So each year, if you take 3% from the budget before you use it, then it becomes 6%, then it becomes 9%. It's just a better way, I think. So never cut employees, but I do think we can do a hiring freeze.
Thank you, John. Mike?
I don't know if I really want this mic for this one, but just about every time I go to talk to the head of the department, I go in the bathroom and I look in the mirror. And there have been times when I have to make cuts. I have to. No matter what I want, I have to make cuts. And cuts are tough. They're tough if you have to cut labor. They're tough if you have to cut expenses. They're tough if you have to cut, getting some new equipment when you've got some old stuff that needs to be repaired, and the repair bills are getting pretty high. There really is not a good way to answer that other until you are in that situation, and then you have to make some cuts. We can't just go on raising taxes and raising taxes. Pretty soon our people won't be able to afford to stay in their homes, and that hurts our economy. There has to be some times when you're going to have to make some difficult decisions, and I'm not prepared right now. I haven't seen the stuff in front of me, but I know that time will come, and I will have my phone on. Anybody can call me. Anybody can talk to me anytime. Anybody can come down to see me, and we'll just have to talk. And I will do the best that I can if I'm elected.
Thank you, Mike. Ed?
I believe we need to keep our best asset, that's our county employees, all the way through. We'll have, if we need to make the cuts, you go to the department heads, the other elected officials, wherever, what percentage we have to cut, that's where you voluntarily want them to cut to, try to get to that. There's some things that you cannot cut. Law enforcement, we're required to do law enforcement. When it gets down to the bottom end where you cut as much as you can, then you will have to start looking at what is required by state statutes that we provide, and what are some of the luxury things that we provide. I don't even want to go down this road, but some of the things that are luxury load is down the road is 4-H. We support a lot of that, and that's absolutely do not want to even think about going down that road, because that's our future. But people got to be in mind, we are required to provide certain services in this county by state statute, and some are not. So I hope we can voluntarily get ourselves to that point when we need to, so we don't have to start cutting services for our citizens of this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Go ahead and keep that mic. When a county commissioner states that they haven't had a raise, which I think there was one within the last 8 years, are they considering the increase in insurance costs that the county is absorbing each year? In considering raises for commissioners, is the increased cost of health care that the county has to absorb each year considered?
For commissioners or for?
Yes, for commissioners themselves.
Yes, as the commissioners, our percentage on our insurance is absorbed by the county like we did for all the rest of the employees, if that's what you want. If that's the question you're asking, yes, the county absorbed our increase of insurance just like we did the rest of our employees.
Is that taken into account when considering giving yourselves raises?
I've never considered giving ourselves raises. We had, several years back, there was, went from $1,000 a month to $1,200 a month. That was given back then, but since then, there's never been any talk about commissioners' raises.
Thank you, Ed. Marty?
Thank you. So when there was, as most of you know, when you increased every 4 years by statute, you were required as a Board of County Commissioners to look at the salaries of all the elected officials. And so 6 years ago, it went from 1,000 to 1,200. In my argument, in our argument, we had talked about we always talk about the insurance raises. But what's never discussed is that when the county commissioners get $1,200, you also are eligible to have the insurance. And one of the insurances at the time was because of the Affordable Health Care Act, you had to provide 90%. That meant that the county picked that up. So sometimes, if you took the high end of the insurance, what you were getting as a benefit, as a paycheck, more or less, some of those commissioners were getting $25,000 a year. There's other commissioners, I was one of them, my husband was one of them, we didn't take the health insurance, so we got the $1,200. So I was trying at that time to say, why don't we not give the health insurance and raise it up so that it entices other people to come be commissioners. So if you were to say, and Weston County's the least paid commissioners in the state. Some of them are considered full-time, and there are those that make $75,000, $100,000 for being county commissioners. So what my suggestion was, let's put it out there. That's what the county's paying. That's what your tax dollars are paying for, is insurance. Tell the people what you're paying and tell what you're getting from the county. And that was next, but thank you.
Thank you, Marty. All right, we're going to move on to dispatch. This is going to be for the entire panel.
Did you want me to answer that question?
Did you get a raise during your 4-year?
If you're considering to our insurance, that did cover our cost of insurance, yes, we did.
Okay.
We increased that. However, I just want to comment a little bit as a commissioner that that argument about the insurance and let's give ourselves and other commissioners make more money, I didn't recall seeing that in the minutes, and it's actually one of the minutes that I brought. Actually, that board said no to county employees getting a raise. And actually, that particular commissioner suggested a 20% increase. I don't see any conversations on there about health insurance and the benefit of it, if that wasn't added in the minutes, but then again, the commissioners approved the minutes. So that's one note on that. Raises, I don't know why. I didn't take this job for money. But we have had conversations in the past about, well, we go to the meetings and we should be paid. Granted, there's some work involved in going to the meetings and attending things like this and going to these ceremonies that we have to go to or asked to. But if you are running for commissioner because Gillette commissioners make X amount of dollars or somewhere else, then you're not for Weston County, and you have to understand where you're at. So I don't recall anything about that in those minutes, and you're welcome to review them. But there was a 20% specifically asked for by those commissioners.
Thank you, Don. For the entire panel, are you in favor of forming an ambulance district in Weston County? There's 3 questions here. How do you think this should be funded? And if the formation of an ambulance district is funded by a mill levy on property taxes, it comes before you, how would you vote? So are you in favor of forming an ambulance district in Weston County? How would you fund it? And if it was proposed to fund it with a mill levy on property taxes, would you vote yes or no? Ed, you want to go ahead and start that one?
Well, since you asked that question, if you look back in the minutes, I actually made the motion to move forward with forming an EMS district in this county. The way it will be funded is off of a mill levy. That's how this district will be set up. There's not an option of, if you don't have the mill levy passed, why would you have an EMS district? Because you won't need it. You won't have any funding coming in unless somebody wants to start making a lot of donations. You can only get 2 mills. If it goes to the front of the voters, you can ask for 2 mills, and if it gets passed, that will stay forever until they don't request it. You can actually also go and get an additional 2 mills, like the hospital does for their 3 mills. The hospital's allowed 3 mills all the time. They come back every 4 years and ask for an additional 3 mills. An EMS district will have, if voters pass it, mill levy, they will have 2 mills that's guaranteed to them. Every 4 years, they can come back and ask for 2 more mills. And yes, I would vote for it because our county needs rural EMS. On the other hand, 4 mills will not support an ambulance district.
Thank you, Ed. Mike?
This is a kind of tough one for me because we've used ambulance out there on the ranch, and I do agree that we need ambulance in Weston County, and if we have to fund it, we have to figure out a way to fund it. And if that means having to cut something somewhere else, I think that has to be done too, because I kind of feel that we're all paying enough property taxes in this state and in this county, and I don't. That's one of the things that I'm for, is I'm for keeping taxes where they are and trying to find ways to reduce them. So, yes, I'm for an ambulance, and no, I'm not for fighting with an additional mill levy, but I'm all for trying to find a way to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. John?
Mr. Riker did bring up that motion, and it did pass. I voted yes for it, not because I wholeheartedly believe in it, to be perfectly honest. I voted for it because it was gonna go on the ballot and the people were gonna vote for it, and I think that's where the decision needs to be made. Our property taxes, we just had an increase, but the interesting thing is next year, HB 3 starts, which allows people ages 65 or older to get discounts or reductions on their property tax. So we're gonna have, the truth is, we're an aging community, we're gonna have people applying for that. So how are we gonna backfill that and fund an ambulance? I believe it's similar to the old 85 bridge, which I also voted against originally. It's gonna cost a lot more than what we realize. When they came with the ambulance service, I said in commissioners' chambers to them, when they said, we're here to help, and I said, please don't claim that you're here out of the benefit of your heart. That money is going to another county, and I wish that we would have had someone step up or even had the hospital take that on, because that revenue belongs here in Weston County. But the most important thing is that the safety of our residents comes first, which is why I voted yes on it, so that the people can vote on it. I am skeptical as to how just putting that on to property taxes or taxing it is going to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Henry?
I worked EMS for 26 years. I rode an ambulance in a totally different area, and it was totally tax funded, but we cannot afford that here. We probably afford partial tax funding, but we also receive billing when the ambulance comes to your house. I know that twice I've needed an ambulance up near Red Butte. Twice I did not call them because I sat down and worked out the timing, and it was faster for me to tell my wife, drive me to the hospital. And so she did that twice. Funding, if you're going to have a tax levy, the people need to vote on it. I agree wholeheartedly. Because if it's a tax levy, it's us paying the bill. I also, 2 years ago and before, have said, I wish Weston took care of itself. Because as Don has said, money's not coming here, it's going somewhere else. The money needs to be here, if at all possible. Dispatch on an ambulance is going to be difficult in Weston County, depending upon the number of units you have. If you only have one unit, the response to my house from the phone call I would make, the time they hit the street to getting to me is going to be about 30 minutes, especially as fast as ambulances drive. I know, I drove one. So that's a lot of time. I came from an area where it was 3-minute response. And so I understand that. I knew that when I moved here. But we need EMS. You do not want to be stuck out on the ranch or out on the farm. Literally, I've taken and had to unstuck people from all kinds of farm implements. The worst was a combine. And that just takes time, and you need the ambulance there. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Marty?
Thank you. Little pushback just on the previous one. Anytime that you have increase in salaries, you must go be up for reelection and the voters choose whether or not you get that raise. And another thing, when you have budget workshops, no decisions are made. The decision must be made in an open meeting. So you can talk a lot about things and minutes aren't taken, but there's a lot of discussion, and you go to the meeting and have that be moved. On the EMS, of course I want a district. I don't know necessarily it's being EMS. The thing to consider is, of course I go for ask the voters for the 2 meals. But something to consider is to go back to the legislature and ask them, why don't you find the 2 meals? Why don't you find the 2 meals either out of education or you find it somewhere? Because this state is in dire need. And the other thing is, why can't it be considered that each individual in Weston County have a membership to an air ambulance? They did it in Washakie County, it'd be something to consider in this county. Because there are places, Chad, that it's very hard, if anything should happen, to get out to that ranch. And you just had an incident. And it took, what, 4 hours maybe, 4 hours? If we have air ambulance, it's something to consider, and I think it's something to consider that for the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. The next question, I'm going to assume, is directed only at current and previous commissioners. County dispatch was a huge issue in the last election cycle. The dispatch situation was resolved to the county's benefit by a lot of hard work, effective communication, and compromise. Using hindsight to judge your own actions during that controversy, what do you feel you did to help resolve the problem, and what could you have done better? Marty?
What could I have done better? So years before we tried, we sat in a room, Brian can attest to this, and we did everything we could to get where we could come to a compromise. And what happened is people just stood up and walked out. So it got to be quite interesting. So we brought the subject back up because of a push by our Homeland Security, and it was good. It was good. But there came a time when you kind of just had to, okay, that's it, we're done. And probably what in the course of the thing is to just stop and say, okay, we'll have our own dispatch. Well, I got the ball rolling. Nobody wanted to. There was no way that we could even afford to. But the conversation did get reinstated, and I'm proud of the board for doing that. I'm proud of the current board for doing that, so congratulations.
Thank you, Marty. Don?
The thing I'm most proud of about the dispatch board and my involvement was being there, attendance, listening to the meetings, making sure that I understood the process, working with law enforcement, working with the entities. What I think I personally could have done better, make it happen sooner. That drug on for a year and a half after it was reported to us that an officer couldn't get communication and his life was at risk. And we still drug it on for a year and a half, 2 years before we ever came to a compromise, never remembering that what if it would have happened again in the meantime. So my regret about it is the lack of oversight by us as commissioners, including myself as a commissioner. We should have been more involved and we should have stayed more on top of it. It's not our job to have entities come to us because we are commissioners. We have to open the door. We have to open the lines of communication, and I felt like that's where the struggle was all along. We felt we were better somehow. They can come to us. No, we need to be out there involved and engaged in the community. We are never better than the people that we serve.
Thank you, Don. Ed,
Could you repeat the question, please?
county dispatch was a huge issue in the last election cycle. The dispatch situation was resolved during the last term to the county's benefit by a lot of hard work, effective communication, and compromise. Using hindsight to judge your own actions during that controversy, what do you feel you did to help resolve the problem, and what could you have done better?
Thank you. Like my opening statement, I've been here for 32 years. I've been with fire department, I've been in city government. For 31 of them years, dispatch is a very contentious subject. Trying to get both entities, when I was mayor and on this side, to get everybody together was tough. We could never come to conclusions. There's always this little bickering going here, this, well, I don't want to pay for that, you need to pay for this. It wasn't an easy decision for me in that meeting to make the motion to start our own dispatch, but I'm proud of, it made our communities come together and sit down, put their petty differences aside and work it out. I, brought up the deal, and in that motion, it would be run by the sheriff until we had a joint dispatch power board in place. Now we have a joint powers board over dispatch, and what I've seen so far, they're doing very well because there is representation from every corner of this county on that board. So I feel bad about having to push come to shove to get us off our butts and get together and take care of a serious problem, but I'm proud we did it. And I say we as law enforcement, police, city, county, Upton, the rural people, everybody has got a say in this, and we used ARPA money, which it covers everybody in this county that travels through this county. There's not one person that travels through here that it won't help or that lives here that can't help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. The next question is for John and Ed. The state passed an $11 billion budget. Why is the county asking county department heads to cut their budgets?
Every year, we fight what they call direct distribution in Cheyenne. It is money that is given out to the, I would say, financially strapped counties like we are. We are the second poorest county in the state. Niobrara kicked us firmly out of second place. They have third down real well. We fight for that money all the time, and it's the distribution of it is they call the Madden formula. We get way more than the big counties do because our revenue is down. We don't have the way our tax mills are down, or our evaluation is down. So we get a bigger cut of the pie out of the direct distribution. The reason we're asking for this cut is we only get 12 mills. That's all we can ask for. Valuation dictates what those mills are worth. Everybody knows what inflation has done in the last 5-10 years. We have gotten nothing cheaper. Everything has gone up. Our valuation has went up, but not in comparison to what the cost of everything have went up. I'm all for lower property taxes, but when we start giving refunds back or we don't charge people their taxes, our revenue for our county falls, direct related to that. We don't have the money to backfill it. These bills that are out there that people need to scream at their legislators about is, if you're wanting to give these tax breaks to these people, you as a state, you backfill it out of your coffers because we can't afford to out of our coffers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Don?
Honestly, I think Commissioner Wagner answered that question excellently. Our evaluation was down, but it wasn't unreasonable to help. Thank you from our elected official in the assessor's office. It's only going to get worse, I think, next year with HB3 coming on. But I think Commissioner Wagner spoke excellently on why we asked for cuts.
In regard to the fairgrounds, why were things taken away like funding for management? Don?
The fairgrounds is kind of one of my pet peeves, actually. The fairgrounds was originally donated to Weston County as a place that we're supposed to enjoy. But there's a lot of people believe because it's a donation, it should not cost anything. Even a donation costs. We have to maintain that property. I'm not aware that we took money away for management. What we did have at the fairgrounds was a problem with holding people accountable. We did have a manager there, and I really can't go into a lot of details just because it's an HR matter, but we took back the responsibility of handling the fairgrounds because there was a need. We had monies that weren't being properly handled. And frankly, some of that, I'll just say it because I was on the board for 4 years, that's another area where we've had boards that believe that if you give them or take over things, we're micromanaging. We should have managed better. We should have managed a lot better with the fairgrounds. I think all the commissioners want the fairgrounds, want to see it do the very best, but it costs money to operate. You take your horse out there and you use the arena, there was rocks in the arena. That was a good example that we had somebody donate that material to, but they were upset when the rates were increased. It's not free anymore. It's still responsible for taking care of the roofs. We're still responsible for the grounds. We're still responsible to make sure we preserve that wonderful donation. But at no time did we ever take away funding from the fair. We just started having to take it over because we had a management issue at the fair. That also led to, recently this board just got done taking care of taxes that weren't paid in 2019, 18, and 17. And we had to pay penalties on that. That was an oversight by our commissioners, including me, because we never followed up on it.
Thank you, Don. Recently, it was brought up that commissioners get paid for missed meetings. And there was a motion brought before the board. The question proposed here is, why do you feel you should be paid for missed meetings? Don?
Well, I was the one that brought that proposal to the board. And actually, I would say I will commend Marty Ertman. She was always at the meetings that are regularly scheduled meetings, but we did have a lot of absentee meetings, especially at workshops and budget time, which, by the way, is our primary responsibility. I don't believe in the definition, in a small town of under 1,500, the definition to get paid means you're rendering a service and you're getting paid for it. However, the statute does say that we have to pay commissioners equally. Now, the irony to that is it's the same people, the legislatures, that vote themselves raises. I don't believe you should be paid if you're not there, if you don't attend. There are trips taken down which are very important to Cheyenne, but we have 2 meetings per month that we need to attend to our own backyard. And yet, there are times when we've had commissioners go on I'm not gonna say leave of absence, but miss multiple meetings and still are paid, and yet are paid from their other jobs. That's wrong in my opinion. We don't deserve that pay. When I miss work, I don't get paid. And my wife is a real stickler about that one for some reason. So,
Thank you, Don. Ed?
Our wages, our salaries are set by state statute. The way they're set, you can't take them away, the way state statute reads. I've missed meetings. I've been in Cheyenne fighting for other parts of this county, for other things on this county, for the better of this county, and missed meetings. I've been down there at times. I've been down there for a couple weeks at a time with legislators working with them. I never got overtime. You know, you don't get paid if you don't work. Well, you have an employee that works 3-4 days more than they are required to work. You're required to pay them overtime usually. So everybody needs to look at this balance of where you're at, what you're doing, you know. There's times I've missed a meeting and the meeting was 45 minutes long and there was very little on the agenda. So is my time more valuable to be here for a 45-minute meeting that's really nothing that 3 commissioners can't handle? Or down in Cheyenne fighting for $1 million of tax revenue coming into our county on the direct distribution? I don't want to be the judge of that. My conscience tells me where I can spend my best time for this county. And sometimes it's in Cheyenne, sometimes it's here. So I really don't know what the answer to that is, other than let your conscience be your guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. This question we're going to ask to the entire panel. We all remember the secret vote that took place by a previous board for HD2's successor seat. How has this been a stepping stone or lesson for your future in politics? Ed?
Well, first off, I will say, it wasn't really a secret vote. It was a nomination process to come forward with an individual to replace Hans when he resigned. Because of that, and the lawsuit that proceeded, I'm very careful if I send an email to more than one commissioner, because it can be construed that I'm having a secret meeting behind the scenes, and if I send it to all 5, I don't know if I'm going to get dragged through the mud or not. I won't send a text message to people. I will respond to one commissioner or one commissioner only. If I need to, I will send 4 text messages to 4 different commissioners, but I will not do it in a group, because it was pure hell for 18 months getting my name splashed across in front of a newspaper on something that really wasn't, I don't know. There was 3 counties involved in that. Only 1 county Board of Commissioners got sued. The crime, the alleged crime, happened in Niobrara County, but yet the lawsuit was filed in Weston County. Think about this a little bit. It was, like I said, it wasn't a secret ballot. It was a nomination process, because when it come time to vote for the individual who was placed, it was done in public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
That's right, it wasn't a secret ballot, it was an anonymous ballot. Tell me what the difference is. I went to that same meeting, and I heard the same things. We were the only county that was sued, but perhaps that was because of the result of the election. I believe, I don't know 100%, but our own commissioners voted outside the county as they spoke that they were for the county. You gotta ask yourself, when he says think about it, ask yourself this question. You elected me, you come to me and you say, I'd like to know who you chose to represent me for my county. And you say, or I say, I'm not going to tell you. That is wrong at any level of government. We have a right. If I'm voting at home on my own personal ballot, I can vote for whoever I damn well want to. But when I'm representing a community that elected me, I have no right to say, I'm not going to tell you. At that meeting, our chairman spoke and said why they wanted it to be an anonymous ballot. She said, I don't want there to be any repercussions to you for how you voted. I was there at that meeting. I believe Carrie was there at that meeting. I went along with that and got to thinking about it as a new commissioner and said to myself, wait a minute, that is wrong. And by the way, there's no minutes for that meeting, or they're vague. I think we've all done that research. And since former Commissioner Urban made the comment of saying that, I just want to say, hey, what were you hiding? Are you, just own it. If you voted for somebody, say, hey, I voted for this person because I thought they were better. That's all you have to do when you're everything on the
Thank you, Marty?
Well, there was quite an accusation there. At that meeting in Lusk, I did not say anything about the secret ballot. What did occur, is that a person did stand up and ask, and the chairman and John Ellis, and I have a letter to the editor that was printed in the Gazette that explains what was said that day. I didn't say anything. I was just as surprised as anybody else that the would choose to do exactly, but they did choose to do exactly what the precinct people did 5 days before that. And those are elected people, those are grassroots people too, and the occasion occurred that's what the chair of that meeting chose to do. Further on that, an interesting thing happens is that we learn that we're put under immediately criminal investigation. And anybody that knows the one they're put under criminal investigation, anything you say can and will be used against you. So to work this out, what should have happened is it should have gone to trial. This should have ended up so that this question would never be asked again, and that if it was correct for the precinct people to do it, and then if it worked out, that the Board of County Commissioners could do it. Thank you.
In relation to that question, Marty, another question, given your opening statement, is it safe to assume you stand by your choice to vote in secret and would do the same in the future?
I hope I never have to do it again. I hope nobody resigns again. But if it was the choice of what happened with, that's when I'm going to go back, that I'd like to see a court make that decision. Because if the precinct people do it and was chosen that they do it like that, then I'm not sure why the changeover to the commissioners would be any different. Because the fact of the matter is that the precinct people went from 6 to 3. That was the elimination process so that they could hand those 3. So what happened in the commissioners, the 3 county commissioners, is it went from 3 to 1. I think the interesting thing is that it ended up being an 8-3 vote, but what if it would have been a 4-4-3 vote? So what would have happened then? How do we do that? And the explanation that,
Repeat the question, this is not the answer. The question.
They don't feel you've answered the question. Would you like me to read it again?
I think I was answering the question, then it's how I'll answer it. So if they don't think that I answered it, then I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. The previous question was actually asked of the entire panel. Henry, remembering the secret vote that took place by a previous board for HD2 successor seat, how has this been a stepping stone or lesson for you as a future politician?
follow the Wyoming law. Wyoming has a very specific law on closing your meetings. You have to close them in a very particular fashion with certain statements that have to happen. And closed meetings can only occur for very specific reasons: personnel action, contract action. That's about it. Otherwise, everything on an open board has to be open.
And Mike?
I say absolutely open, honest. If they ask you a question, you just keep everything above the board. That's the way that we should be hired by you, is to be honest.
Thank you, Mike. To end, we are trying to hold a hard line at 8 o'clock, so we'll ask one more question. We're going to go a little bit over to make sure everybody has an opportunity. As a commissioner, who do you consider to be your boss? Name one time when your opinion differed from fellow commissioners, and how did you handle the situation? We'll actually let the entire panel answer that. Go ahead, Ed.
I answer to the voters. They're the ones that put me in office or take me out of office. The second part of that question, could you please repeat that? It was kind of...
Name one time when your opinion differed from your fellow commissioners, and how did you handle that situation?
If I can name exactly one time, but I'm not afraid to vote against the board if my people that have come to me, the constituents, and are not wanting it to go that way. I have no problem getting, say no to the vote, and this is why, because the people that I represent didn't want it. But to go back to pick a exact time, I don't know, I can actually pick one out, but you people know me, I'm not afraid to go against the system. If it's not right, I'll say no and tell you why I feel it's no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Mike, we'd like you to go ahead and answer that as well. Who do you feel as a commissioner is your boss?
Repeat the question.
Who do you feel as a commissioner do you consider would be your boss?
I think that the people of the county, if I was elected, the people of the county are my boss. The next boss would be the chairman of the board. And you kind of have to listen to him, but you have to listen to all your people that you got to vote from.
Thank you, Mike.
Chairman's not the boss, but I appreciate you saying that. I think I've already shown in the 4 years I've been here, I'm certainly not afraid to speak up or buck the system. But the people of Weston County are who elected me, and the people of Weston County is who I serve.
Thank you, Don.
Who would be my boss? Well, remember in the very beginning, I said, this is a job interview for me, so you would be my boss. Now, there was another section to this, and that was the second part, if I differed.
Yes, if your opinion differed from other commissioners on the board, how would you handle the situation?
Everything usually ends in a vote, but I would voice my opinion, my feelings, and my position. And if it goes against me on election, that board speaks with one voice, the voice of the majority. And once you've had the voice of the majority, it speaks with the voice of the chair, not my voice at that point.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you. The voting booth is the boss. The time that it would be different in that is when the public doesn't understand what the state statute, then the long arm of the legislature sometimes is the one that gets to tell you what you get to do. And thank you.
Marty, if you go ahead and keep the microphone. We do want to give everybody 1 minute for a closing statement tonight. We appreciate all of you guys coming out, and of course, we want to thank the constituents for coming and being a part of this forum as well. We're going to go ahead and let Marty kick off the closing statements.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining here. Thank you to the firefighters that are having quite a time. And thank God for the rain when it came in Upton last night, and please let us have some. In my closing statement, the one thing that I'm most concerned about is this budget. And it's a $20 million budget that when it was published was 18 million. And then when we get, understand 11 days later, it's now 20 million. And this thing was published with 5 lines that have zeros on them. Actually, there's 5 lines with with zeros. If a Board of County Commissioners have to publish a budget that they don't know what's in it, that's being irresponsible. And so, this budget, your money, is the most important thing, and there has been no money that's been put into depreciation reserves, nor in the cash reserve. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty Urban. Henry?
I thank you all for coming and listening to us this evening. Just remember, my door is always open. I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to have conversations and talk frankly with people. If you have questions of me, always ask. And lastly, I promise to work for all of Weston.
Thank you. Henry Nessel.
I'll start with, I'm very proud of the last 4 years. It's been very important to me to do exactly what I said I was going to do. I've reached out to the constituents at times, been to their meetings and asked them, is there something that I can do better? I'm always willing to change, but I will do what is transparent. I'd like to throw in a comment that was made about this lawsuit, and the only thing I want to say about that supposed proof that it wasn't something that they lost or won is the commissioners had the choice to go to trial, and we chose to settle. So if it was really important to go to court, go to court. We were told outright that we should have named who was on our ballots. I will continue to be transparent. I will not be ashamed for what happened with that ballot because I serve you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Taylor.
And that's absolutely right. We need to be transparent 100% of the time. If you guys ever have a question, you all need to pack that courthouse on commission meeting. Wouldn't that be something to see this kind of, if we had to have it out on the lawn, that would be great. But, we need input from you guys. And, we're just a vessel to get your work done. And I absolutely tell you, I promise you, my phone will be on 24/7. Call me.
Thank you, Mike Harris.
I had a little bit of a closing statement prepared, but changed my mind a little bit. What I'm thinking now is, thank you all for being here. We've had a lot of American citizens, women and men, serve our country on U.S. soil and foreign soil. Do your right that they have fought for, the rights they've given you. Vote. Vote your conscience, do your homework, but do not abuse the right that those people died for. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you to our entire candidate forum for coming out tonight. An oversight, I did not thank our question committee, Mick Bone and Scott Beechler. Thank you guys for being here and doing a fine job tonight. Be safe, have a great evening.